All right, here's your lesson on factoring by grouping. And this happens when you have four terms. And so here we have four terms. And our first step here is to look at only the first two and think, what's the greatest common factor? What do they both have in common? So 1 and 7. The other is the algebra, and they have at least how many? So take the least one, and it's x squared. So they both have at least two x's. Divide. So x cubed divided by x squared is 1x. Divide again, and it's 7. And we're going to do the same thing here. 2 and 14. What's the largest number that goes into both evenly? That's 2. And then we divide. So 2x divided by 2 is 1x, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. Then we factor out the common binomial. So they both have x plus 7 in common. So we factor that out. And then what's left for the second factor is x squared plus 2. If you want, you can actually multiply it out. So you can go x times x squared is x cubed. 7 times x squared is 7x squared. X times 2 is 2x. And 7 times 2 is 14. And you can see that the end equals what we had at the beginning. So, all right, that's what we're practicing. All right, there are four terms here. I'm going to factor this by grouping together the first two terms. And I see that they both have an x squared in common. So they have at least two x's. So I'm going to factor that out. Then I'm going to divide. And when I divide with algebra, that means I subtract the exponent. So I have 1x. And again, I'm going to divide. And 4 divided by 1. And then when I subtract the exponents, I have 0, which means no x's. And then I close it. Look at the next two together. Group them. What's the largest number? That goes into 8 and 32. So there are a few numbers, but the largest one is 8. And then you divide. So 8x divided by 8. 32 divided by 8. And then I want you to notice that they both share the same factor. And they share x plus 4. And then what's left over is x squared plus 8. And that's it. Number 2, group it together. Again, a squared. That leaves me with a plus 2. 9 and 18. 9 goes into both. Divide. That's a plus 2. So they have a plus 2, and a squared plus 9 is left over. Group together. Divide. Group together. Notice in this case, they both have a negative. So it's not 8, but actually negative 8. And then when you divide a negative divided by a negative, it becomes positive. W squared take away 8 would be a difference of squares if you knew the square root of 8. So you could have actually gone further if you knew it. Here we go. Factor out a k squared. Divide. Factor out a negative 5. Divide. Now a negative divided by negative when you divide becomes positive. And then k plus 2 they share. And then what's left over is k squared take away 5. Again, so if I look here and I group them together, take the least p, which is p cubed, and divide that out. That's p squared minus 6. Look at the next one. I'm going to take out a negative 2. Divide. That gives me negative 6 because a positive divided by negative, and now they match. So p squared subtract 6, and then p cubed subtract 2, and that's what they have left over. Again, look at the first two. Take the least. That's v squared, and then divide. Look at negative 3 and 3. Negative 3. Divide. That's v minus 1. And so v minus 1 they have in common. And then what's left over is v squared subtract 3. All right, let's see if we can. Now in this case, it is x squared, but They also, 3 and 21, 3 goes in. So there's two things there, 3 and x squared. Divide, that's 1x minus 7. Now look at the last two, the largest number that goes into 4 and 28. And then divide, and then we have the common factor, and then 3x squared plus 4. Again, group them together. It's y cubed, but also a 2 goes into both evenly. Divide, that's y minus 3. Look at the last two terms. It's going to be negative 7. Divide, so you get y minus 3. And then y subtract 3 is common. 2y cubed minus 7 is what's left over. All right, the first two, a squared and 8. And then divide. And then negative 3. And divide. Remember, a negative divided by negative gives you positive 2a. And then 2a plus 1 is the common factor. 8a squared subtract 3 is what's left over. All right, keep practicing here. Factor out an m squared and a 5. And then divide. Look at the last two. Factor out a 2. Divide. You know you do it right if these match. And then we have 2m minus 5. And 5m squared plus 2 is left over. Not going to do the multivariable. But look down here. Oh, that's multivariable. All of it is. That's it. So there's the lesson on factoring by grouping. And now we're going to do our homework sheet together. All right, Mr. G Math over and out.